eNCA's Govan Whittles was at the Congress today. He joins me now. Govan, thank you so much for chatting to us. It was very interesting listening to, of course, the other member of the tripartite alliance, the ANC and the SACP, along with COSATU. President Nzimande spoke this morning. She did not pull her punches. Some real straight talking on their concerns about the state of the ANC. And essentially that the ANC needs to look long and hard at what it could be heading for in the 2024 elections.
Indeed, and important to point out, Nzimande also a member of that ANC NEC, and that criticism is something that's been repeated within COSATU, and certainly something she didn't hold back on when she was delivering her message of support here at the SACP conference. And not only did she say to the delegates of the SACP here at the conference that they need to urgently renew the ANC, she asked them to recommit themselves to the renewal of the ANC, and saying that the ANC remains the best party to lead the alliance in an election, and clearly showing that she still believes in the leadership of President Cyril Ramaphosa. But then on the other end of the spectrum, acknowledging that people who are implicated in wrongdoing, or as she put it, stolen money, that when they steal money, they say they're doing it for their family and friends, and when they get caught, she says they claim it's a political conspiracy, and says that this needs to come to an end, and called on the SACP members not to allow people to unite in defense of the corrupt. Let's take a look at that speech from Nzimande.
Comrades, those who have broken the law must go to prison no matter of their status in life. Jails are not meant for the poorest of the poor in this country. The judiciary system is not meant to find guilty the poorest of the poor in this country. Then we think there's justice. Justice system must serve everyone, including sending high-profile politicians who have broken the law to jail because they have stolen from the public purse, they have stolen from the poor. Singamobilizani to defend people who have stolen from the poor. Ngoba maqabana khona ibhlungu njengento bangaba abantu abahluphekileyo amahlwembu ahlangane to defend amasela. Bathi bafuna socialism, bathi bafuna ukulingana. Kodwa ba defend abantu abathatha ezipokothweni zabo. So we are saying as a federation, the failure of the NPA, the SACP and judiciary to ensure that the most senior criminals amongst us go to jail is exactly why the nation, the movement and workers are in a crisis that we're in.
And Govan, it's quite a big SACP conference, and one of the reasons is because, of course, Nzimande is going to be stepping down after over 2 decades at the helm as General Secretary of the SACP. He's been given rather a long goodbye, hasn't he?
He has indeed, and he's stepping down as General Secretary, but he might be back as National Chairperson. We'll find out tomorrow once those nominations are in for those positions. He has said he will accept if he gets nominated, but he had about a 3.5-hour long swan song saying goodbye to the delegates, and in it, as he's known to do, he analyzed not only the political state of the country, but took some time analyzing the various SACP campaigns that have been led under his watch, particularly as they relate to the financial sector, and then some scathing criticism from the General Secretary of the Communist Party to his own members, and the state of the SACP's branches and communities, and the state of those communities, saying that they need to inculcate themselves in communities more so that they have actual support. And that brings it to the main point of his speech. This conference had been teed up as being one where the question of whether or not the SACP should contest the elections was going to be a big debate. Nzimande, in his speech, approached this a little differently, saying that if you wanted to contest the elections, you should have done the work on the ground and built a strong socialist movement so that the people would actually vote for the SACP once it gets on the ballot. He says this hasn't been done, and because of this, he wants this conference to resolve to create this powerful socialist movement that would then work towards getting socialist power in South Africa. But he addressed the Young Communist League more directly, and they're the ones championing the case for state power, saying to them firstly that it's not correct to aspire to want to win 10% of the vote in the national elections, and the entire strategy being based off a theory that the SACP would then go into coalition with the ANC if it falls below 50%. Nzimande not supporting that move at all. He says in order to entertain this debate, you'd have to consider the consequences and what the SACP would look like if it contested the ANC for power, and whether or not the ANC would ask SACP members to leave the alliance and end the dual membership system that they've had in place for decades now. Let's take a listen to this excerpt from Nzimande's speech, and it's specifically about the question of whether the SACP should be contesting electoral power.
All of these objectives will remain out of reach unless we fundamentally change the balance of class forces much more effectively in favor of the great majority of South Africans, the workers and the poor. That also includes, comrades, what we are singing about. There is no state power if you don't have power on the ground. That is the reality. There is no state power if you can't shift on the ground the balance of forces in favor of the workers and the poor. You can dream about it, but it won't happen if objectively the conditions have not been changed. And we are saying the primary form through which we should change this is to build this powerful socialist movement of the workers and the poor. It's not for the workers and the poor. Because if we are saying it's a socialist movement for the workers and the poor, we are assuming that we're going to build it somewhere else and then bring it to the workers and the poor. It must be a socialist movement built by workers themselves in this country.
Well, thank you very much for wrapping that up for us.